getting recorded, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we can start with the. Sorry. So our first problem is like two sorted linked lists are given, and we need to. The new list should be made by splicing together the nodes of the first two lists. First two lists. So these are the two lists, and this is the merge one, third one. Yeah, like one, and then one followed by the smallest two, then three, and then four. Since both are equal. Yeah, any queries in this or approach?
Yeah, the problem statement seems to be straightforward, right? It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
only two linked list and then they are
Yeah.
all sorted.
Sorted, yeah.
Yeah, and we need to return a sorted list,
List.
combining both of them.
If it is unsorted, then I think it will be a bit complex.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's an easy problem. That is what they categorized also,
Yeah.
right? But it's only the linked list, how you handle them.
Each
That is,
case is enough.
yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
that is only
Uh,
the most
Tweak.
critical
Yeah.
part here. Yeah.
Critical part. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but they have not said like anything whether it should be done recursive or the iterative way, right?
Yeah, they haven't
Or either of
mentioned.
the work. Yeah. Okay. So maybe the iterative way seems to be slightly easier,
Yeah. Hmm.
right? So
Anybody has done recursive way? I would like to see the code.
I have done.
Yeah. Sure. Share it.
yeah, sure.
Is my screen visible?
No, no.
No. No.
Just a second.
We still cannot see Harshit.
Yeah, my laptop is hanging.
Okay. Okay. In the meanwhile, I'll share the normal one. Like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Normal is straightforward. That iterative one. Simply like I took a dummy node, and then as long as my both the lists are having some nodes, whichever is smaller, just append them to your head, and then move next in that. Or if it is L2, if you have taken the node from L2, then move it next. After doing all these things, if you are left with either L1 or L2, just append it to the no to whichever point the head has reached, and at last just return this.
So in the main while loop where you are actually looking for the L1 and L2,
Yeah.
so whenever you see L1 val is less than L2 val, you
Yeah.
take L1 val first, right?
Hmm.
So if it is equal, you take equal or greater, then you take the L2.
L2 well, yeah, in else part.
Okay.
Hmm.
And then also you increment the main pointer, head equals head dot
Head,
next
yeah, yeah, yeah.
for
The
each and every
one.
iteration.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So,
I
but
think
instead of
time is.
using a dummy node, yeah, dummy node is, yeah, that's a good way to do it. Uh,
Hmm.
but without that also you could do it, right? But it's slightly more coding.
Like what I have to do in that case?
So the way you have a dummy node, right, as a least node 0 something, because that itself is a value again you are using a least node. So instead of that, you could,
But I'll return from next. Okay, huh?
yeah, you can use some dummy node which is null, and then from there you can
Uh-huh.
start, right?
Appending the value. Okay.
Yeah, you just append, like first time you check if when the head itself is null, then you make whatever L1, L2, whatever that value is, you make that value as the starting point. That is the head.
Okay.
And then you keep on incrementing. The next time when you see and your head is not null, then you just say head dash next is equal to L1 or L2, whatever it is. But you'll have to add some more conditions, ifs and else, yeah. But that can also be done.
It would be just one if condition that would create your first reference. So if L1 is less than L2 on line number 8, then you start your head equal, like new head equal to, just create a head pointer equal to L1, for example, if L1 is less than L2 at line number 8. And then you have regular while loop and what you're doing. And at the end, just return that head.
Yeah, okay. That is also a good one. Because I was doing in the second if, like when you say at line 10.
Yeah.
So that what Darshan was saying was a good one. You actually do it before that, before the while loop. And then so you have a single node to handle. Yeah, that's good.
It is no side effect, but the way I think the way that Shashank return the dummy node always there. The dummy node is always there with the return, right? Nobody deallocated.
Yeah. So yeah,
I used to do that with that if else condition was Santosh mentioned here, but I stopped doing that and following that pattern that with the dummy node, and that actually had a lot less error.
Less code.
Yeah.
I mean, code looks
I think
elegant.
otherwise we need one previous node if we don't have the dummy node, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
you don't need a
Something to
previous
hold the
node,
previous
but you just use the head one, and as Darshan said, you do it before the L1, L2 loop.
Okay.
Yeah, but you have to add all these condition and all these linked list related problem. Having that dummy node upfront helps a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so to write it very quickly and very error free. Yeah, this is a good way to do it. Absolutely, I agree. But if you really want to avoid all these things, you be very, very clear that you are going to have a very optimized one. Then you don't even have that least node, then dummy node, right? So sometime it might come, why you are adding one more node? Someone might say in an interview, because you just want to actually make your problem statement more, challenging. So I just trying to throw some ideas. And also in that case, if you come to line number 17 and then you have not gone in the L1, L2, again you'll have to handle that case here also in L1, L2 somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes more complex, I know. Yeah.
So if you'll ask me the reason why dummy node, what should I do? Avoid that problem only, no?
Sorry?
If the interviewer asks me why you are using dummy node.
But that's very convenient to do, right? He won't ask,
so
but
what should I say?
he will say that, yeah, this is a good way to do it. Absolutely. This is the very normal way to do it. That's fine. But if he wants to make your twist in a problem, so he will always say something more, right? So then we'll have to be ready to do some more extra things and then explain him what are the pros and cons of this.
Can you ask to merge without using, in place? Like this is extra node I'm creating and to that I'm appending. I don't need to here itself, like one pointer here, the other one here, and then merge it.
But you are doing in place, right? This is also in
This is in place, yeah.
But I'm using extra dummy node and then to that
it's
I'm
only
appending.
it's only one extra node you are using, but everything is in place.
But if without using that, here itself like 1 is less than 1, so between 1 and 2 I'll put 1 here. That would be complex, right?
That's what Santosh mentioned, that if you don't want to go with dummy node, then you can just have the use the head and initialize with that, whether the first value will come from L1 or L2.
L2, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I can share my recursive.
Yeah, sure. You want to share?
Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've simply done this. Recursive. If the value of L1 linked list is less, I am sending L1 next in the next recursive call, and I'm returning L1 here, and similarly for the L2 thing. And if any of them is null, then I simply return the other linked list.
So, but on the line number 28, do you
Yeah, I
need L1 dash next to equal null?
Correct. I think that is redundant.
Okay.
I don't have to make it null because I can just simply call.
Right. And also you are actually holding the on line number 27, the new L1 equals L1 dash next. You could have directly written that one L1 dash next in line number 29 when you're passing the parameters, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just wanted to
Yeah.
the variable.
But this is a very explicit way of doing it for a recursive to understand it very clearly. Yeah, that's good. I think this is the only way you can do any recursive, right? There are no other styles other than this one, right?
This is good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is the only way we can do it. Correct. Yeah. I don't think so. We have any variations in it.
Apart from this, we can use a min heap, I think.
Min heap.
That will be again
But you will add another data structure, no?
unnecessary. It will be add on. Yeah.
And why you would like to use the min heap?
If it's not sorted, then I think that makes sense to use something like that, right?
Correct.
Merging 3 sorted list or yeah.
Because 2 lists are already like sorted. We just need to like merge them. There
Yeah,
is like
yeah, exactly.
no need to like put them together like in a heap and then sort them.
Yeah, I was just thinking of another solution.
Extra work it will be. Yeah.
I think he was thinking like if there are more than 2 sorted lists, like 3 of them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
Then
in that case you can use a.
Then still like, do we need a heap or like we can sort them in the same approach, divide and conquer?
Yeah, that can be one of them.
Then
I think in
But
that
how
case,
to
it will
switch?
be
whichever element you will append, you increase its pointer in that particular linked list.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
So we have to
that is-
maintain node and the index also, ij also.
Yeah, but heap is better in that case. Like if we have 3, 4, like for a generic solution.
Right.
Can we like divide and conquer? Let's say there are like 10 lists that are given to us. Okay, start merging 2 at a time. We are left with 5. Start like merging again 2 at a time. We are left with 3. Pick 2, merge, and then like repeat the same process.
Yeah, that's the merge sort concept you're using, huh?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think the implementation would be a bit complicated, but yeah, that would also be the same complexity.
Yeah, concept. Yeah.
But I believe like overall it was a good discussion. You guys talked about the dummy node. Okay, I believe it's perfectly fine to use it in the interview. And this concept of dummy node, like in linked list, or I can call it a dummy element, starting with a dummy element, okay, is very common. Apart from linked list, if you are solving like most of the sliding window questions, okay, there you will see a concept of like starting with a dummy index or dummy index, which will help reduce the code complexity a lot. We don't need to like introduce a lot of if-else checks.
Right. So you have index starting before any of that index is what we are working on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's like a very common pattern, common trick, a neat trick to use in a lot of different problems.
In linked list, it's pretty common. I have seen this dummy node concept.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, we can
Yeah,
switch to
Harshit, thank you.
next. Yeah, thanks. So our next is like it's like arithmetic slices. Sequence of number is called arithmetic if it consists of at least 3 elements, and if the difference between any two consecutive elements is same. So these are the three sequences. So one difference if you see in the first one is 2, second is 0, and third is yours again. If you do like 3 minus of 1, it will be 4. 4 will be the difference in this third one. But this is not a sequence because uneven difference. You have 0, 1, and then 3, again 2. So they have defined a zero indexed array, which would be consisting of n numbers, and slice of that array is any integer pairs p and q such that your p will be positive and q will be greater than p, which would be less than n. And is called a arithmetic sequence if the consecutive elements is arithmetic. In particular, p plus 1 would be less than your q. The function should return the number of arithmetic slices. So if you look at this example, the subarray here, the 1, 2, 3 with the same difference than 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3 for the entire array. So these are the three slices, arithmetic slices possible out of this array. Yeah, any queries here?
So in a case like when you have an example like 1, 2, 3, and
Yeah.
then 7, 8, 9. Okay. So in that case, there will be 2. The answer will return as 2, correct?
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, and 7, 8, 9.
Or maybe 1, 2, 3, and 8, 10, 12.
Then one, right?
Then 1 only. 8, 10, 12. No, 8, 10, 12 is again good to go because difference is 2. No.
The answer will be 2 in that case. So 1, 2, 3, and 8 and 12. The answer will be 2.
Yeah. No, but 8, 10, 12, there the difference is constant. But throughout the array, the difference should be constant, right?
No,
Is
I
it
don't
like
think-
that?
No, I think so. There can be 2 APs, right?
But the difference should be same only. D should be 1. It shouldn't be in 1, 1. In other set, you should have 2.
No, I think we can have multiple differences.
Because the problem statement says if the difference between any two consecutive elements is same. So it doesn't say.
Throughout
But,
the array.
yeah, we cannot add both of them together, but we can say 2 distinct ones, right?
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
So just one more example. If the array is 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9.
Uh-huh.
So in this case, I think it would be 4, right?
2.
No, I think 1 will be 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, and
Yeah, I think it is 4.
3, 5, 7 is all. No.
Yeah, it is showing me 4 here.
Yeah, so 1, 2, 3,
Yeah, it will be
5,
4.
7, 9, 3, 5, 7, and 3, 5, 7, 9.
Oh, okay. Oh, that is the reason it is 4. Okay. Yeah, then that's right.
So there can be multiple type of differences, right? 1, 2, 3.
Right.
So because it's not a sub-array, it can be anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a subsequence.
It has to be subarray, not the subsequence, right?
Yes, subarray contains
Yes,
only.
it has to be a subarray.
Subarray
It has
only.
to be
Yeah.
subarray. Yeah. But the check what he's putting is the right because we are taking the difference between the two elements. So even if it's 2 or 3, any difference will cover that.
But in the way he said 1, 2, 3, and 5, 7, 9. So in that case, it will be 4. So then how can it be a subarray?
So the subarrays for
5, 7, 9 is the subarray, right?
Yeah, but then
Continuous,
1,
we are
2,
not-
3, and 5, 7, 9, 2 subarrays. But
No,
then he
because
was
3,
saying
5, 7, 9. There's 4 subarray. 1, 2, 3, 3, 5, 7, 5, 7, 9, and 5, 7, 9.
Okay. I
It's
got
sub
it.
arrays only.
Yeah.
If you take the example of 1, 2, 4, 3, you'll get 0.
Okay, yeah. Makes sense. So the way to go for this, the approach which comes to my mind is like you use some sort of a recursive way, and then in a recursion, actually you start with one index and you start with one index and then compare its what you say neighboring elements and see if if they are actually with the same index differences, and if it is there, then you increment by one, and then you pass on the next element.
But in the recursive, how we'll go back to the more than 3 element, because we are passing just for the comparing the 3 element, right? But if we go by recursive, then we cannot go reverse back and count the 4 after that, right? I don't know how.
Yeah, you can actually, because so when you are actually passing a pointer, you pass it in such a way, right? Okay. So if your array length is something like n, right? You pass array with the array, you pass an index of the last index n minus 1, right? And then you compare in your function, you compare that index with the previous 2 indexes, right? And your base condition will be like if your index is lesser than 2, you return 0. And then you keep on incrementing if you find the difference equals same.
Can I ask like one question here before even going to the recursion? What should be the brute force approach? Like if someone want to try it iterative way? Because it's like pretty obvious, like sometimes for these questions, recursion doesn't came naturally like in the mind, like how to apply recursion on these. But if I have to do it in the iterative way, like how can I go about it?
So I think for every substring, we validate to see if that substring is the right proper sequence.
Yeah. So we want to check like for every combination, like starting with because minimum length is 3.
Yeah.
Okay. So take the length 3, then length 4, then length 5, and then keep checking that way.
Yeah.
So you start with like if first you check if the vector size is lesser than 2, then you return 0. So if it is not lesser than 2, then you start with at least not the first index, but the second index. So you can actually compare with the previous one and the next one. And then keep on moving that,
Why can't like you start with the first one?
So behind what you'll go behind first, you'll be out of your, what do you say? I mean, if you are starting from 1, you have to check 1 back, right? Which is array index. I mean, you won't have any elements.
But you already, can I like share my screen?
Sure.
Sure.
Actually, you should start with the first. On the first, you will have to use 2 loops, right? One is the first for loop will start from the first one, but it will end before the 2 elements, less than 2 elements, and then you start with the second one, which is actually +1 with the from the first for loop.
Single for loop also can work.
Single for loop, then how you will be adding them? Because you'll have to add those also, right?
Yeah, that whatever left and right difference I'll take off that.
Brute force, I think single for loop won't work.
No, I think there would be 3 loops if we go by the brutest solution, brute force solution. One for the starting element, one for the length, and one for traversing the substring.
So length, you can directly get the difference, left minus right or right minus left minus 1. I mean, the difference between 2 numbers will give you the length, right?
But in any case, I have to fix either the ending element or the length.
Okay. Let's go. Yeah, go.
Yeah. Can you guys like see my screen?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So let's say like we are talking about to start with this index, second index. Okay. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was saying that. Yeah.
Okay. Now we already talked about we are going to check the array length. If there are only like 2 elements, less than 3 elements, then we will return 0. Okay. Also, what if I start with the first one? Because I know like my array length is greater than or equal to 3. Okay, so at least like there are like 3 elements in that array. And then the goal is to figure out if I start with the index 1, like index 0, like this first one, okay, take the length 3 elements at a time, and then see if they satisfy the condition. Does this satisfy the condition? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Because I know like I can go 2 ahead because like my minimum length is 3.
Yep.
Okay. Then can I do the same thing for starting from like still I'm at 1, but take the length 4.
But why?
Okay. Will that work?
Yeah.
Why 4? I'm saying.
That will work, but actually, okay. I was thinking like you'll take the first, whatever you said, the 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, and then you move from 2 to 2, 3, 4, like that.
No,
Okay.
definitely.
Because we need to count the 1, 2, 3, 4 also later on.
Yep, definitely I have to like move it to 2, but I have to like keep my index at fixed at 1, and then I have to figure out like all the lengths, all the subarrays which satisfy the given constraint.
Okay.
Okay, then I have to do the same thing like from 1 to 5, and then the same thing from 1 to 6. So total I found 4 when I'm at the index 1. Okay, then I can jump to index second and then repeat the same process. Okay, so this is like very same what Chuneng mentioned about considering every length for that subarray, like for that given array. You start with 1, and then like when you go from 2, consider these 3, then the 4, and then 5 elements. Now, while we are at 4, we know like we can only take 3 elements. Okay, there are like no more elements after 6, so we can like directly escape it. If you take the other example, like the one that we talked about, 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9.
Yeah, 5, 7, 9. Yeah.
Okay, you start from 1, 1, 2, 3. Okay, it satisfies the condition. 1, 2, 3, 5, it doesn't satisfy the condition. Okay, so we know like starting from 1, we only have 1 count. Then we jump to 2. 2, 3, 5, does it satisfy the condition? No. Okay, we will escape. Starting with 3, 5, 7, does it satisfy the condition?
Yes.
Yep. 3, 5, 7, 9, it satisfies the condition. So we get like 2 count here. Then we jump to 5. Then this is the only length remaining. So does it satisfy the condition? Yes. So we get like 1 more. So total is 4. So this should be like.
Why you are taking like length? I mean, like from 1 to 3, you took again 1 to 4. Why? Because only length 3 is allowed, right? What
No,
is
like
the logic?
minimum length is 3.
Oh, sorry. No.
Minimum length is 3. If you take a look at this whole array, okay, it satisfies the condition.
Exactly. I thought only 3 lengths is it.
Okay. So one thing I recommend, like I'm watching you guys having these conversations like on the daily basis, okay, and you guys like talk about the possible solutions which are like super good, but I will encourage you like to come up with a whiteboard and try like drawing it, which sometimes make like things more clear for everyone.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that will be a good option. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good idea too. Yeah.
Yeah, you can continue.
Yeah, somebody wants to say something.
Oh, so yours is a DP solution? No, okay.
No, no, iterative only. Like I started from true, and every consecutive elements I'm checking the difference.
The best trick is that answer plus R minus left. I couldn't get that number. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like 8 is there and 5 is there. So length, how will you get 8 minus 5 or minus 1? Because it's starting from 0 index. So 3 total length will be 3 in that case. So that is what I'm doing. Else I'll update every time I'll update my left pointer. Let's say if you didn't find like 1, 2, 3 and then something 1, 2, 3, 5 is there till third you found, right? That is what your one good array. After that you are not able to find, and 2, 3, 5 is not a correct sequence. So you'll update your left pointer to the next immediate wherever your right has ended.
Okay. So this is the very optimized version what you are doing, correct?
Yeah, this is taking, I mean, taking advantage of this. I mean, 2-pointer approach, you can call it. Not, yeah, like kind of, not exactly.
Yeah, this is really clean code and good approach.
Yeah.
Getting the answer plus R minus 1 minus L minus 1 is the key here, because I couldn't think of that while doing it.
Otherwise, you will have to use some for loop to get that length.
Yeah. It's length that increases the number of count by that, right? So that is
Exactly.
length, you can get it. But the count of sequence is increasing by that. That is the trick here.
Okay, I'll share you my recursive approach.
Yeah, I would like to.
Yes, please.
My screen is visible, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the one I was talking about. This is a function, our entry point. I'm just looking for the size, and if the size n is lesser than 3, I return 0 first. And I have this answer and n, both are the member variables. Okay, here I just define them in the class solution. And then this is a helper function, and I'm passing on this array with n minus 1. Okay, so I'm just I'm going from the back side first. So this is the helper function. This is my index, the parameter which I pass on. And this is the base condition. Whenever the IDX is less than 2, okay, you return 0. Or else I compare the differences, the two differences. Then if it is true, then I come here and then add 1 and again recurse for the next index.
So once array you got, so 1 plus, and subsequently you will go for the next.
Yeah, and then this is the one. This is the global variable. So sorry, there's a class member function variable, and then I keep on adding this whatever the results I get into that variable. And if it is not same, then I just keep on moving my index to the next position. Okay, so this is the recursive way.
So helper of a comma I represents the number of slices we have found till the index I, starting from 0.
So you are saying a comma?
So this function helper of vector comma index. So this represents the number of slices from 0 till that particular index. Is it this way?
So it is recursive, right? So actually it keeps on going to the last one. Oh yeah. What you say makes sense, right? Yeah. So when you come out of it, it is like that, yeah. Even if you start from behind, actually it comes to the first one and then actually keeps on calculating those values. Yeah, you can say that from the 0 to that index.
I think one small optimization can be done is that in line 85 and 89 we are calling the same thing. So we can call this at one place and use the answer in both places.
So you can call both of the functions at one place and just increment the, yeah, that also can be done.
Yeah.
But only thing is, this helper, when I'm actually returning here, I take that value of the return one. Okay. But in this case, I just throw away that,
Yeah,
because
so
if I use that value, then actually it will mess up my calculations. So therefore, I
Look,
don't actually take that value.
two lines in one x, you get the helper, and then add x that to the rest of 1 plus x.
yeah,
That will, like, you store some value, whatever helper returns you, and to the rest you add it. So you don't need to again call helper in 89.
right.
Yeah, but you'll have to call it, but only the code will be slightly cleaner. That is what it's trying to say,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this was the one. And I think the
Right.
other thing was the same thing what you explained.
Mhm.
But I think there is one way also to do it using a DP array, right? Bottoms up approach.
Uh,
Instead of using a single variable that you used.
has anyone tried with, how will somebody proceed with that?
Sorry.
With DP array, how to proceed?
I think
DP approach,
it's in the solution also.
which mentioned.
Is the approach 5.
Oh. So its a problem is like first three, like depending on that, it will start increasing. Like, I mean, for 5, it will look for first 4, whether it is in a, what do you say, proper sequence or not.
You're talking about the fifth approach. Actually, what it says is you start with an array of length of that whatever the input array is,
Yeah.
and then you start from the second index, and then with the second index you compare the previous one and the next one. You see if
Yeah.
the differences are same. If it is there, so that DP index value you'll have to increment with 1, looking at the previous DP element.
Elements. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have a global variable called sum, and then you keep on adding those values of that current DP index.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And so yeah,
I didn't
one
get
D
the
array
K
only.
comma I part. What is this? This representation of DP of I.
Till that particular index.
Yeah, that is clear, but it says something about it is to store the number of arithmetic slices possible in the range k comma I and not in the range k comma j. So I mean, is it kind of subtracting some repetitive things?
Which number of
Oh, he's talking about the information there. So k comma j.
Is
Well,
if
You're repetitive only, like between k to I, if you have some you got a sequence, and in that, if you get a sequence like k to j, that part I think,
so
because
it is storing only those slices which are ending at I. Is it that way?
seems like that only. Yeah. So in intermediate, if you have something, so that will be again redundant only, right? No, no, it should be considered that also. No.
so
Again,
if
k
they are
repetitive.
contiguous ones, then actually it is using it. If they are discontinuous, like 1, 2, 3, 4, then it will store a value for 2, 3, and 4, right? But if it is 1, 2, 3, and
5.
something like 10, 12, yeah, so it won't store that value. That is what I think what it says by K and I.
So till 1 to 3 only it will take, and 5 it will truncate.
Yeah, if you look at the what so the code it will be more slightly clear because the code is
Yeah,
very
it's
super
that
easy.
only, I think, what you have said.
So when you say that DPI, actually it stores all those indexes, the contiguous ones also, if they are the same 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4. So that value is stored in the DPI because it looks for the previous value. So if it finds 1, it means they were the same indexes, right? They are the same differences, sorry.
Yeah.
So then only it increments the value. So till then, till that index where it finds all of them have the same differences, then it keeps on incrementing that number. But you still want to add all of them together, and therefore you have to use the sum variable.
Right. So basically, DP of I represents the count of all those slices ending at I.
Right. Yeah. But then if they are discontinued one, like 1, 2, 3, and then you have 10, 12, 14, then actually it won't store, right?
It will
For
take
the
only
10th,
up to J,
for the
which is less than I.
for the 10th index it won't store. So it will again start the next one. But then you'll have a discontinuity between both of them, and that is the reason you needed that sum variable.
Variable. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, we can go to next.
Actually, I tried with like the sixth approach in the solution.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the time complexity is same O(n) and the space is same O(1).
You want to share that?
Yeah, I can share, but my code is not clean at all.
Okay.
It's okay. Oh.
Okay.
Anyways, I'll share it if that's
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to.
Uh, so what I basically did was, if we take an example, 1, 2, 3, 8, 10, 12, then what matters to us is like we found these three form an AP 1, and these three form an AP 2. So if we add like one more number, like we add 4, now we have an AP of length 4. So what matters is actually what is the length of the AP that you found, because eventually if we find an AP of length 10, then it doesn't matter what the numbers are 11, 12, 13, whatever, but the length is 10, right? So for length of AP 10, now we need to find uh, sub sub arrays such that sub arrays of minimum length 3, right? And the length can go up to n, but minimum should be 3, right? So I just found out how many ways there are to get sub arrays of length greater than 3, length greater than equal to 3 from an array of length n. So one possible is this. Then is again 2, 3, 4, then 3, 4, 5, and so on. And then once we finish with length 3, then we can go to length 4, then then eventually length 5, and so on.
This is
So
the brute
basically,
force, right?
DP, huh?
no, this is not the brute force.
Because we are going through repetitively each, right? First 1, 2,
No.
3,
So
1,
what I
2,
did was
3, 4.
I say okay. So I simply found an AP. I simply found the length of the AP starting at this point and ending whenever whatever is the end of the AP. So if the length of AP is, let's say, this, so my starting will be 1 and my end is 8, right? And my length equal to n equal to 8, right? So I'm only concerned with the length. So
But
once
if
I
this
found
is
the
the
length is
AP or
8,
not?
then I simply use the formula. Sorry?
Okay, go ahead. I'll look into this. Yeah.
This is AP, yeah.
So once I found out the length, I simply use the formula n into n minus 1 by 2 to simply calculate how many possible ways there are to arrange the Three consecutive elements.
Okay.
Yeah. So I simply found the starting and the ending index of an AP and simply use the formula to get the number of possible combinations. You can see on line number 30 and line number 24.
Okay.
8C3 you are doing, right?
Sorry?
8C3.
Not exactly 8C3. Because 8C3 means like how many ways you can combine, right?
Your orientation will
But
change in
it's
that
not
case.
actually, yeah. So it's not actually 8C3. It's the formula is n into n minus 1 by 2.
Yeah.
So that is sum of n natural numbers, right?
Right, right. Actually, if you look at that way, it's sum of n natural numbers, but
Yeah.
it's does not restricted to that, right?
Ye- Yeah. I didn't get that. How that formula is sufficing here.
So he's
I think
subtracting the
if we
minimum.
apply
Yeah,
that formula
that's
to
good.
any sequence, it will come to that. Because,
Right.
yeah, good
So
point.
whatever the index,
I can
whatever
derive-
the length, you are actually subtracting that with the minimum length first, which is 3, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's right.
I think we can derive this also, like what would be the number of sequences of length 3? So that would be n minus 2. And the number of subsequences
Right.
with length 4, then that would be n minus 3. And we can add all them, and I think that is what we'll get.
So yeah, that will end up to n plus n, n into n plus 1 by 2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is a very different approach. I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought this. Yeah, that's a good one.
That's good.
Please
We
share
need one.
the code on the Slack of this thread.
I share the solution. My code is pretty messy, but if it helps, I can share that as well.
Yeah, just share it and then we can work on it
Awesome.
to understand it.
Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah,
one.
sure. This was the only way I was able to do it.
I could never even thought of that. This never came to my mind. Yeah, that's good one. Yeah. Good.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we can switch to next. So this is like adding one row to our tree. We are given the root of a binary tree. The value will be given and depth will be given. We need to add a row of nodes with value v at given depth d, and the root will be at depth of 1. Adding rule is like depth will be given, and for each not null tree, if the tree is not null tree in tree nodes n in depth d minus 1, we need to create two nodes with value v as n's left subtree and its right subtree. And n's original left subtree should be left subtree of new left subtree, and its original right subtree should be the right subtree of the new right subtree. And if d is 1, that means there is no d minus 1 at all. Create a node with value v as the new root of the whole original tree, and original tree is the new roots left here. So what they're saying, in this tree your value is 1 and depth is 2. So when if you see depth, this is depth 1 4 and 2 and 6 at depth 1, and this subtree should be, so from 4 you have to attach 1, that is whatever value, and to the ones left you need to attach this, because they are saying the original left subtree should be attached to this newly created ones. Similarly, 1 will be here, and to 1 6 and 5 will be attached. So this is what they have done at a depth of 2. Then if we look at this one, depth of 3, it will be like 1 2, again attaching 1 1 and to its left you attach 3 and then 1, and the given d is in range 1 to maximum depth of given tree plus 1, and given binary tree has at least one tree node. Yeah, and if you find that the depth is not existing, you create a 1 in that case. Yeah, any queries in this?
So in example 2, so instead of depth 3, if d was 4, okay, so
1 3.
in that case, the way they are saying, like, because it's going to be the leaf nodes, right?
1 2 3.
Yeah, if you
The leaf nodes, children.
if you just go to slightly scroll up, yeah, here you see in this input, your 4 is first, second, 3, and your depth is 4 in that case. So you are going to put all of your whatever the value 1 and attach
After 3 and
to
1.
leaf 1, 3 and 1, right? So in that case, you will have to create a left and right child both for both of them.
Yeah.
So that is one way it's not very clear in the problem statement. And
Problem
also,
statement.
if you have depth is equal d is equal to 1, and in that case, it is shown there. So your whole tree will be what do you say? It will be a left subtree for the particular value, and that will be your root. So like the way you have 4 here, so you'll have 1 which will have a left subtree which is pointing to this node 4, and its right subtree will be null. So these are the only 2 things which we need to take care of.
Yeah. So if we have 4, you'll attach to this, no, 3's level.
Yeah. So you'll have, but you'll create 2 subtree, what do you say, left and right,
Yeah.
2 nodes for 3
Does
and
it
2
say
nodes
that
for
in the problem?
1.
Yeah,
That we
yeah.
have to
That
add-
is not say, show, yeah, that's not very clearly said, but about the root it is. If you read at the very end, if
Yeah,
the
for the
depth is
root
1.
it says, but yeah.
Yeah, for that one, if it's a leaf node, it doesn't say that. So whenever we find a leaf node, we actually have to create 2 nodes for it.
That we have to create in here also. You need to know here we simply attach it at this depth.
Yeah, because in that case, see, you don't look for that null other part like the right and left in this case.
Yeah.
So we just keep it as is. We just put 2 nodes in between and just attach that whatever was coming from the root or the ancestor, the parent, you just pass it on.
And for 1, you have to create a new node. If your depth is 1.
Yeah, 1. Yeah, you have to create a new node and then make the whole subtree as a left subtree of that particular node.
Only left subtree.
Yeah, it's only left subtree. That was slightly weird, but
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand. Right? Can you please reiterate over it? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so if the depth is 1, it means we need to create a root with that tree node, which value 1, whatever it is.
Right.
And then it's
Right.
a left subtree will be pointing to the old root.
I
Right.
mean, root will
And
become child.
so root will become the new value, and its left right subtree will be just null. You don't have to do anything there. Just leave it blank.
Right.
So the way I think means I actually
This
was
last line
working
is
on
there.
it. Yeah. So the whole last line. So I did it the BFS way.
Okay.
And so whenever I come to the level which is lesser than 1, and then I stop there and actually create whatever the new nodes are there, and then actually, if it is they are in between, then connect both of those nodes with this new node. Or else I use a queue and then keep on adding its left and right and all that BFS way. And when I come to that particular level, I do all that addition and then I return from it.
I did it the DFS way, and it became because of the conditions that you just now described. It was really very what should I say? There were a lot of conditions to take care of, but the code looked very simpler.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, please.
Oh, okay. So let me share my screen.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
So basically, what Santosh was describing was the corner cases. That is how I mean, I hit those cases after I wrote maximum of my code. So the central idea was, if the depth is given, it starts with 1. If the depth is say 2, then the left subtree will go down, and whatever the new node will come up here, and the right subtree will go to the right, and the new node will come here. So kind of when I am recursing down, every step I keep track of, if that is the depth, in which way I came. Did I come from the left or did I come from the right? And accordingly, I just fiddle around. After I create the new node, if I came from the left, I basically populate the original node on the left. If I came from the right, then after creating the new temporary node, I basically grab the whole subtree here and stash it on the right. So that is how I went. The limiting condition, like Santosh was describing, if it is first where there is nowhere to come, by default we'll assume that we are coming from left. So and if it is say 1, 2, 3, and if he says 4, which is null, then we'll just return the value, the new node, and attach it to here. So that was something that basically troubled me quite a lot. Other than that, things are very straightforward. So suppose 1, 2, 3, if I get the depth as 3 and a random value of say 5, say 7, then what I'll do is I'll come here, come here, come here, and here I see it is 3. I need to replace this. I came from the left, so I'll create the new node with the value I said 7, and the left child of the 7 will be 3. Similarly here I am coming from the right. Now the new value of 7 will be created, and whatever the node is, I'll just toss it here. Interesting thing is the 6 right. So because this is a depth which is less than 3, I'm not going to alter the tree here. If it is null, let it be. I'm not creating any node there. Only at 5, which is 1, 2, 3, third depth, that is where I am working. So the code looked very simple. It is like, what is my root, current root? By the way, this is JavaScript. It may look a little weird. It basically allows me to write an inner function. So what is my current root I'm dealing with? What is the, am I coming from the left or from the right? And what is the current depth? So the starting depth is obviously 1. So what I simply do is, if my depth is less than the target depth and root is there, then recursively create the things. Because the one in the below, when I create this root, create this new node here, it needs to be reported, percolated up. So that's what this thing is doing. Okay. But interesting part, the meat of the thing is here, which is very simple. If I am already at the depth of D, just take note of, am I coming from left? Then create a new tree node with the new value that is given to me. And on the left side, so this is how it is. New tree node, left and right. On the left side, stash the current root. So for example, I'm changing this guy here. I am coming from the left. Now I just grab as it is, create my new node with the value 1, and I basically stash whatever it is on the left. So new tree node, create with the value V, and whatever my root value is, that becomes my left child. If I'm coming from the right, then on the loop there, on the left there is nothing, on the right there is the root. once this returns back, obviously it will go to this stage, because I'm coming from depth 1, 2, 3. There is no other way. The depth is going to increase level wise, right? So once I return from here, then it basically, this is the backtracking part. Basically root dot left. If I came from the left side, then the root dot left I had passed as root, which was used here. Now go back. I mean, stack goes up. I got the new root left, new root right, and return the root. That's all. And interesting thing, this thing is preventing me from inadvertently creating any new root. So this is the case where the 6 has no child. So if I recurse into it, obviously, suppose I am at 6, the root is at 6. Now the root dot right was null. When I go to add one dot row, then I see my depth is still less than D, but the root is not null. That's why it will basically protect all this code. And I don't do anything. I just return the root as it is. The code clear?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a new way to do it.
This is just the recursive way of doing it. I'm just doing the recursion. So the way I'm thinking is, every time I'm going depth, obviously the depth will go 1, 2, 3 until D. The interesting thing you probably noticed is, after I reach the level D, I'm not recursing anything. I'm just making use of all the subsequent leaves as it is. For example, suppose this is D equals to 2. I'm here at 2. When I'm at 2, now I'm not recursing into the subtree anymore, because I finished my recursion. I just created a new node with the value V. Yeah, I created the new node, value V. I'm coming from left. So whatever tree was there, I just put it on the left. That's all. And there is no recursion below that. So as you see, after D, I have taken care of less than D, equals to D, but there is no greater than D, because I'm not recursing. I just return from there with the existing one.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so you're almost doing like a post-order traversal of a tree, right?
Exactly. No, I would say yes,
A
because
modified one, yeah.
Yeah, obviously. It is, yeah, exactly. You can clearly see how just the same post order is just happening here.
I didn't get that part.
Left,
How
right, and then
the
processing
post-
on the node. Third
Yeah,
one.
can you please explain from beginning? I missed some.
Sure. Are you, so let me first answer the post order traversal. Where is the post order traversal? So post order is when you let your children do their work first and you do the non-recursive part.
Oh, okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Who was asking to repeat?
Darshan.
Version.
So repeat. Okay. Where should I start from? Are you clear about the question?
The question is clear, just your algorithm part.
Okay. My algorithm is just a post order traversal. The thing that I'm doing is basically when I'm starting from 1, then the depth will only increase one after another. So for the first few times, I'll be in this loop where my depth is less than D. It is not a loop. I mean, in this condition, obviously loop is a strong no for.
Why we are starting with the left true?
You remember, I think Santosh was talking about that limit condition. If the D was 1,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
then
that's
it will be left. Yes. So coming back to the repeating thing. So when I'm starting from any tree, when I'm starting, I can only start from the lowest depth. Then the depth will keep increasing. So the thing I'm doing is basically I'm asking my children to go down until my depth, I have reached the depth of D, my target depth. Correct?
Yeah.
Now I am also aware once I hit the depth D, I'll be creating a new route, new node. That means when the backtracking happens, all that nodes should be reported back to me. And I don't know from which side, I mean, I'll have to traverse the whole tree. So I'll have to traverse left as well as right recursively because I have not yet done my actual work. My actual work is this part. And when they do the work, because they will return a new route, I'll have to grab those things and then give it back to, back to my top. I don't know if my explanation is good enough. No questions.
No, it's perfect.
You
It's
have
correct.
full condition on 21, line 21, right?
Line 21 is the actual thing that is happening at line 21. If I reach at depth D, then
you have 3 equals, right? So
that is JavaScript idiosyncrasies. Okay, fine. Is that
So 3 is
better?
allowed.
Just one thing, on line number 26, in the second part of OR condition, you are returning root or add one.
That is a JavaScript way of saying if there is no root, return it. Otherwise, do the actual work. Return the actual work.
Oh, okay. I was slightly confused there. Yeah, good.
Okay, basically it is a very shorthand kind of way of saying that if the root is not null, so mind you, this is out of the recursive thing.
Yeah, that is the starting one. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the starting one, I'm saying if the root is not there, don't even bother doing anything. Only if it is not there, only if it is not null, then do it.
Yeah.
I think on the line 18 and 19, that root dot left is equal to that assignment is also very important.
Yes.
Sometimes I get confused with those conditions. Like, I can call the recursive function, but this root dot left is equal to what the returning that recursive function, that is.
Okay. What triggers that? What triggers that is my function is actually returning something, and I need to grab that. That's why basically this thing is triggered by the recursive return. If I'm returning, I must be making use of that in the subsequent backtracking steps. Suppose this guy is returning something, some new value. Now it should go and get stashed at the left of this guy. That is what it is doing.
Yeah.
I think the reason behind that confusion is like you might start thinking, getting nested inside what will happen to the next level, rather than thinking at one level. Because of that, confusion creates. You would start digging into more sub problems.
Yeah, I believe like this is good approach. Do anyone have to share any other approach, or I have one more thought process that I came with.
Please.
I want to share that.
One more thing.
Would like to share it.
The worst case complexity would be 4 of right?
This new tree node v root, is that a constructor to create a?
Yes. So they have given this constructor over here. So this is the constructor I am using.
Yeah.
But it accepts left and right? Like root left and right.
No. So mind you, when I'm modifying the root, I'm basically creating a new root node with the new value, and my original root either goes as the left subtree or the right subtree, depending on from which direction I came from.
Yes. Okay, got it. So this is default. When you give left subtree, your right is null by default, right? On line number 22.
JavaScript, I think, yeah.
Sorry, which one? Oh, yeah. Okay, of course. Yes. Actually, it is undefined, which is kind of null. So that works.
Okay, like can I share like one more approach? I believe this approach is little simplified version of like what Rajendra explained. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, please.
Can you like unshare? Like I want to.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
This was little tricky.
No, but like this is a good approach.
Yeah, it's a new way to think about the problem.
So the way like I thought on the very similar lines on what like Rajen just explained, but like it's like in a little different way. Can you guys like hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the way I thought was, let's say I've given a tree. Okay, a binary tree. Let's say I have like 2 more nodes here. So this is my binary tree. Okay. And we know like the depths which are given to us are like 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Root start with 1. Okay. So in the problem statement, what we have to do, we have to insert a new level. Okay. So let's say like if the level given to us is 3, okay, then we have to insert like something at this place. Okay, and move like whatever is at the current place 1 level down.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was like my thought process. So now if I have to like insert something at level 3 and make the current level as like level 4, okay, then I have to put the elements at this place, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so this level can become level 3. Now this level can become level 4 and this level can become level 5. Now to insert element at this level 3, what I need to know about?
I need to know the parents. Yeah,
I need to know the parents. I need to like know all the nodes which are at level 2, correct? Okay, and that's where like I if I have all the nodes at that level 2, I will be able to easily insert the nodes below it, like make a left child, make a right child, make a left child, make a right child, and then the current node, the parent node, left as the left of like new child, and then the right as of right child, correct? Now what if the label given to me is 1?
Left.
Okay, then I have to insert like something at this level, right? I have to push like the root at level 2, right?
Yeah.
So so I don't have like any parent of root, so I'm stuck like with this approach. So what I try to do, like I try to take 1 as a separate use case, and then the remaining as like anything greater than 1 as a separate use case. That was my thought process to approach this problem. Okay, now
How do you decide that which side are we coming from?
Like I will come to that. Okay, I don't think like it really matter. Okay, so what I did, like I try to like break this problem into two different sub problems. What if the depth is 1, or what if the depth is greater than 1? Right? Now to figure out all the child, like all the nodes at particular depth, okay, what approach like we can use?
BFS should be fine.
You can use BFS. You can use
DFS also. Yeah.
You can use DFS. Okay. You can use level order traversal.
That is BFS.
Well, BFS level order and then the DFS. Okay. You can use like any approach. Okay. So what I try to use, I try to like simply use DFS because that was like more intuitive, using the recursive way. Okay, figure out a node at the depth one minus the current depth, given depth. If it is 3, then I try to figure out the node which is at depth 2. Okay. Now let me like share the code. But so this idea is clear.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
But
Perfect.
how are you so you are maintaining the parent pointer, that is fine, but the newly inserted node should point to the left or right tree, right? And you have to maintain that pointer also.
So as per the problem, okay, if you are at this node, right?
Yeah.
Or let's say like if you are at this node, okay, and you have to insert a new label here. What you have to do, you have to like just put a left node and a right node. You don't care about like whether you are coming from left or right. Similarly, if you are at like this node, what you have to do, you have to put a left and you have to put a right.
Yeah,
Okay.
but the newly added nodes left and right should also point to the remaining subtree. Right?
Yes. So in this case, this is the newly added node.
Yeah.
Onto the left. This is the newly added node onto the right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, whatever is the left of parent, this node will become left of the newly added node onto the left. Whatever is the right of the parent will become the right of the newly added node onto the right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, like, let me show you the code. Can you see the Google Chrome window?
Yeah.
Okay. So based on this approach, like that's how I coded it. If I divided into like 2 different subcases, if depth is 1, okay, then I need to push the root down, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then what I do, I create a like I like hold a pointer to the root. Then at the root, I create a new node with the given value, and the original root, make it the left side of the given node. So is this clear?
Yeah.
If D is 1.
That's
okay.
correct. Yeah.
Okay. Now the other case is if D is not 1, D is greater than 1. Then what I'm doing, I'm also passing the current depth, which I am on currently, and the depth where I need to like insert it. So this is the base case. If node is null, then I don't need to do anything. If my current depth, which I'm on, is equal to depth minus 1, okay, so I have to insert at the depth, like this layer, okay, this level, and I'm currently at the parent level. Current depth represent the parent, okay, because I'm using depth minus 1. Then whatever that node is, okay, at the current depth, okay, I create like a new left node, new right node. Left node dot left is my parent, like whatever the current node at that left dot left, and right is whatever is on the right. Okay. Then the current node left is the newly created left node, and then the current node right is the newly created right node. Okay, and then I return. Because I am done with that level, I don't need to like go any further in the DFS. Okay. If not, then I just like use the DFS, like the pre-order traversal, to recurse the tree. That's it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like a very similar approach to like what Rajendra mentioned, but a little simplified, because I don't need to take care of whether I'm coming from the left or I'm coming from the right.
Oh yeah.
That part is
And this condition we can use in the BFS also. Just put this logic in the BFS. That is what I used.
Yep.
Using the
We can.
Is there any time complexity difference between DFS and BFS in this approach, like in this problem?
I think time
I think it's the
complexity should
same.
be same for both,
Same,
right?
yeah.
V plus order of n, it will be all the vertices you are exploring.
As long as we are returning as soon as we find it, it should be the same.
Yeah, but the
But
worst case, if the level is last one, then we'll have to traverse all the nodes, right?
Yeah, that will be same in both the cases.
Yeah, yeah.
I tried running both the BFS and the DFS as discussed only. I did the same approach as Rajendra for DFS, and for BFS I did the same as discussed earlier. But the running time for both of them varied heavily.
So which one was better, you say?
BFS was far better than DFS.
Yeah, DFS, you know, if you have that stack overhead,
Yeah, that is
sometimes,
what I was
yeah. So it might actually, but if you use a stack and do an iterative way, then maybe that will help. These are just my thoughts, you know.
Does that stack make any difference to the runtime?
That's a good question.
I mean, iterative DFS you are talking.
No, he's saying like if you use the recursive one, so
Yeah.
is it really going to make a difference during the runtime? Because I think, you know, the function stack, it has some overhead.
Yeah,
Because you see there are a lot of parameters actually it has to move out and bring in.
Correct.
Yeah, so that might be. But then I thought maybe if you use a stack, so if you have to make some comparison between the normal BFS, because it's an iterative way, you are using a queue, right? So the best way to compare them with is using a stack, a normal stack, implemented stack in an STL, and then you compare that. So then you can actually have a good comparison. That is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
I'll try that.
Yep. Shashank, you want to share your code?
Yeah, it's the same as that of Gaurav, only simple.
Okay.
Like at depth one, I mean, according to the rule, I created a new node, and to the left of it, I'll append the root. This rule, the last one, and if not root, you return true. Else, in the case of if your depth equal to 2, then I store the roots left and roots right in a variable, and just create a node at that place at root dot left and root dot right, and then just put these value to the next level. Like if you are at this level, you insert the values and store 2 and 6 in some other variable, and then to the one you just append 2 this and just recursively give a call to them.
Yeah, instead of having two variable D and current depth and depth, you're just reducing the depth.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
So many different ways to think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In DFS itself, I
Different.
found so many variants here. Yeah, that's good. So anyone wants to share a BFS? I think Ronnie and I think someone said, right? They have a BFS approach. You want to share?
I have the BFS approach. I can share a few.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sure.
I'm just trying to see how to. So the first case, I am just handling it here. If the t is equal to 1, just add this and return the result. Otherwise, I'm going down and adding the root to the queue. And at each level, I'm doing collecting all the node in one level and then doing it here. So basically, if you come inside the queue at this point, we have all the node in that level. So I'm getting the count of that, all the nodes, and increasing the level.
Right. Yeah.
And then I loop through that many times so that I cover all the nodes at that level. So in that, I get the current node. And if the level is equal to d minus 1, what we have right now, then I add the same thing what Rajendra was doing, that simplified version of the DFS. Create the left node, new node, and left to left, add the temporary one which was before the left.
Okay. So
Same
you're
for the
storing
right.
that temp. Okay.
Yeah. And then just q dot add if it is null and
Yep, this is a very good approach, BFS.
yeah, this is like simpler version, but the logic is same what we had in the previous DFS approach. Yeah.
But you could actually have ended the when you have done with the level is equal to d minus 1.
Yeah. Here we can return it. Yeah. I
Yeah,
forgot.
something return. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no point of moving it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good one. Thank you.
So I can stop sharing. Any question on this, or I think it should be clear because of the previous discussion.
I think return will be after the for loop because we have to explore all the nodes at that level.
So once we find that, then there's no point of going ahead, right? Yeah.
No, he's saying you'll have to complete the level, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to complete the level.
But then you'll have to check if the level is that equal to that depth.
Again, yeah. We have to check.
Yes.
Or else in the while loop, when you are actually saying queue is not empty, there itself you can check what level it is. And then if you are going more than that level, in the starting itself, level is less than D or something, and then you can stop the while loop there. Okay.
Yeah, I saw it's very similar to what Gaurav showed.
Yeah. The logic is exactly the same. It's just the different way.
Yeah, but if you look at the BFS approach, it's easy to understand. I also try to implement. Also, it's very easy. But the amount of coding is much more, right? If you look at the DFS, what they have done, the code is very, very concise.
DFS is always concise and clean.
But it's very difficult to come up with.
Yes.
That is what I found.
Yeah, so true.
I believe like DFS is clean because it try to take use of like the function call stack.
Yeah.
Okay. Here you have to like implement, put the queue yourself.
And also with anything with the specific level, I have the intuition of going through the BFS way because we are adding to all the level.
Yeah.
Generally, what like comes to my mind first.
Right.
Yeah. So I'll stop sharing.
We can use stack also to implement 2 stacks to implement BFS, right?
I think single stack should be okay, or no?
Stack or queue?
No, queue is the normal thing like for BFS. But let's say if I have to use 2 stacks, can I use BFS, or with single stack we can implement BFS? Because for implementing a queue we use 2 stacks. So I thought.
Yeah.
I think you can use a single stack, but only you'll have to reverse the way we are actually putting the trees. First, you'll have to put the right tree and then the left tree, something like that.
With the single stack, it will be the stack implementation, right? DFS implementation, sort of.
Yep. Like one thing I want to like let you guys know, like in the interview, don't try to bring up these ideas. Okay, once you solve the question, because you're giving like interview additional points.